Well, it's just me. There's a reason I call my blog Lonesome Reader. Hey everyone, I have to start off this video with an apology because my last video I made a very short, quick reaction video to the announcement of the Women's Prize Longlist, and I made big promises in that video that I was gonna have a special guest alongside Anna to discuss the Longlist, and I was very excited, but I said that, it might not happen with that caveat, and I think I did jinx it because it hasn't happened. And as some of you guessed in the comments below, the special guest was going to be Jennifer from her booktube channel, Insert Literary Pun here, who's been a massive fan of the Women's Prize for a long time and was finally coming to London, and it was the perfect timing. It was all going to be perfect, but then her trip was cancelled. It's all very sad. Anna and I were both really disappointed because we've never met her before in real life, and yeah, it was going to be perfect timing. The Women's Longlist was just announced, but damn you, coronavirus, ruining all group events of things happening, and yeah, so that's really sad that didn't happen, and yeah, so it's just going to be me today making a quick reaction video. Obviously it was very sad that that it didn't work out like that, though there was still, on the day that I found out Jennifer wasn't coming after all, that there was a lovely celebration for the Women's Prize Longlist that happened that evening, so it was still really great to celebrate the Longlist in that way, because there was a great speech by the founder of the prize, Kate Mossy, who it's been 25 years of the prize, so obviously it's been quite a personal journey for her over the course of that time. And yeah, just celebrating all the great books that the prize has given a platform for, just sort of made people more aware of certain books that they might not have read otherwise, and obviously celebrating the 16 books on the list. So there was lots of good talk with Anna was there, and lots of other fun booky people were there, and we were having lots of chat about the Longlist, as well as Anna and I were talking about Thomas Cromwell a lot, because obviously of this, big new mother that's part of the series. So I'm just going to quickly go through all 16 books, more just whether I'm interested in reading them or not reading them. I feel like it's sort of, the time has passed for me to give sort of full summaries of all the books, because honestly a number of other YouTubers have done that already. Jasmine did a really great Longlist reaction video, as did Greg from his YouTube channel, Supposedly Fun. They both gave sort of summaries of all the books, and so I'll link those below, as well as Lauren did a really fun instant reaction video to the Longlist being announced late at night, as did Matthew Sharapa, of course. My wonderful buddy Matthew Sharapa did a very funny reaction video, which I'll link that all down below. So if you want a more comprehensive look at the prize and all the books that are on it, I'd suggest watching some of those videos. And also, it's just been, some time. I'm sure lots of people who are interested in the prize and might be interested in the books have already looked up information about them themselves. So yeah, this is just more my quick reaction to all of them. So yeah, there's obviously this big new tome by Hilary Mantel, which everyone who is interested in it has been really excited about this past week, that it's finally been released. And there was a big, huge to-do in London about it. Like, there was a big projection of the artwork of this novel on the Tower of London in the city. And so that was really, I didn't see it myself in person, but there was really great pictures of it, and there was a huge event held with her, and so yeah, it was all very, very exciting, and I'm eager to, like I said, I'm very eager to get to it myself now that I've caught up with the first 2 books in the trilogy, though I'm not going to start reading it quite yet. I feel like I've gone on a long journey already, and that probably between all of the books, it's maybe 2,300 or 2,400 pages in total. That's quite a lot. So I feel like I don't want to jump into this quite yet, because it might feel like just more of the same, since I have been reading them so recently. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a break. I'm reading a couple other books in between, and yeah, there's a number of these that I want to get to, and that I'm really interested in reading. Obviously, I've already read Bernardine Evaristo's novel, and this is the new back of the novel, which has also just came out this past week. And isn't it beautiful? It's so gorgeous. The hardcover was really wonderful as well. But yeah, this is really beautiful in itself. And like I said, I'm hoping if I have time to get to reread this. And, and I was quite proud. I went back and looked over my review that I'd written of it. And I thought it was pretty good. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I find it a real struggle sometimes to articulate my feelings about what I've read and really try to capture the mood and what I think about it and how I would recommend it to other people. And I felt like with this book, I was able to really get that feeling of how I felt about it, but also whether I think other people would be interested in it and some of the things you should watch out for when going into this reading experience. Because if you like a novel with just a long sort of plot line that goes all the way through the book, this isn't really the novel for that, but it's brilliant in what it does. I mean, it does what it sets out to do. And so, yeah, that's sort of my feeling about this. And I'm looking forward to rereading it because I think, yeah, there's so much more to discover and that I probably missed on the very first reading. There's also Weather, which, I've already talked about with Anna a lot about how I loved it. And when I was spontaneously asked at the book prize party what I thought might win the prize, I just sort of guessed this. I mean, that's a really wild guess. I don't think its chances are probably that high, but I think it's an incredibly strong novel, and it'd be sort of funny in a way if a very slim novel like this, won over a great big tome like this. And so, I think it's to write in such a condensed way is real power in itself. So it's amazing what the author does in this. There is How We Disappeared. So I felt a bit bad. A few people have made the same comment, which I sort of had the same reaction to the novel. I was sort of aware of this when it came out, but just I didn't feel all that drawn to reading it. And I don't really know why. And I've heard a number of people say that because, I mean, the subject matter sounds really interesting. It's basically about during wartime, there's a girl who basically becomes a refugee and has to join a brothel. And then many years later is reflecting back on that experience and the trauma of her early life. And that sounds like a really moving story. So, and one that I would normally be quite interested in reading, but for some reason I just haven't been drawn to actually try to read it yet. So I'm glad the prize is pushing me to read this because I think it might actually be something really good and special. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. There is Nightingale Point, which is a book a lot of people haven't heard of before the Longlist announcement. And really interestingly, I was talking to a couple people at the book prize that said that they'd read early drafts of this from like 3 or 4 years ago, that it was it used to be a very different kind of book. It was sort of all around. It was always all around the same central theme of a group of Londoners who are sort of have very different lives, but who are from the same area. And then there's a big disaster. But the disaster sort of changed, and now it's all centered around one tower block, one big apartment complex, which has a disastrous fire to it. And I think that she obviously must have changed the subject of the novel to reflect the more recent Grenfell fire disaster in London, which was a fire in a tower block, which was really tragic, and a number of people died in it. And so, yeah, and I mean, I guess you could say in a way that an author's sort of responding to current events, trying to like stay current, or that might be too self-conscious a thing to be doing, but I think it's quite a wise thing to be, because a writer doesn't just exist in isolation. They're reacting to what's happening to them around them in the world, and I feel like this is probably what the author has done in this novel. Of course, I don't really know. I haven't read it yet. I'm just sort of making speculation and commentary based on nothing, basically. But that's just my feeling of this novel so far. But anyway, I'm interested in reading it because it's a novel I definitely never would have heard of or would have been on my radar if it wasn't for this prize. The novel I'm actually reading right now is Anne Enright's Actress, and this is one I've been really excited to get to because she's one of my favorite writers. I think she's brilliant in what she does, and I just love novels that are about the subjects of performance and meaning. Like my MA dissertation when I was studying literature at college was on Joyce Carol Oates' novel Blonde, about the actress Norma Jean Baker, who became the persona Marilyn Monroe, and Susan Sontag's novel In America, which is about an actress. So I just love novels that are about actresses and performance, and that whole idea, how that raises lots of issues to do with identity and who you are. And this novel, which follows, I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through it. It follows the daughter of an actress who was a sort of famous Irish actress, and she's trying to piece together the life of her mother and write about her mother and her complex relationship with her. And it's just, I think it's just a subject totally for me from an author I really love. So, this novel, I was going to read it no matter what, whether the prize or not. And I'm really enjoying it so far. So then there's the novel Fleischmann is in Trouble, which is a novel I mainly became aware of towards the end of last year when this started popping up on some of the critics' best books of the year lists. It made a number of those lists, but has had very mixed reactions and opinions to it. And I'd sort of thought before this prize that this probably isn't a novel that I would be all that interested in reading. And I can't, I'm too sort of diplomatic. I can't be like Matthew Sharapa, who in his video was just like, nope, and threw it behind. It's like, not going to read it. But I am interested in reading. I would want to give it a try. I just feel like maybe it is good. And I read a review really recently by somebody else who's following the prize on their book blog. They said that they came into this with quite low expectations and were quite pleasantly surprised in what it did. Like, they didn't think it was still a completely successful novel, but that it was a lot more interesting than they thought it would be. So I'm sort of going in with that kind of attitude, that I'm not really expecting much, but maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. So that's my sort of feeling about that. The most fun we ever had. Now, this is another novel that a few people I saw on their personal lists of the best books of last year were citing this as one of their favorites, and one I hadn't heard too much about. And I'd sort of, for some reason, I don't know why in my mind, I thought this would be a slimmer novel, but it's actually quite long. I mean, it's not massively long, but it's still, how long is it? 532 pages. So that's still a fair amount. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested in reading it, but I don't know if I'll get time to read it. It's sort of low down my pile of immediate books that I want to read, but one that I'm hoping I get time for, if there is time. There's Edna O'Brien's novel Girl, and there's been some debate about this during the week when people have been reacting to the Longlist prize, and it's a novel that I didn't hear too much about when it first came out. I mean, I've read some writing by Edna O'Brien before and admired her writing, but there's been a lot of debate about, because of the subject matter of the story, because it takes the point of view and writes about African experience, that should an Irish writer be writing about this. And of course, there's been lots of conversation and chat recently about what authors have the right to write what story, and obviously the main opinion by a lot of people is like, well, writers are writing fiction, they can write whatever they want to, and that's absolutely true, and I think a lot of people really believe that. But at the same time, when you're writing about other countries and other cultures, it needs to be handled really sensitively. So I think a lot of people are sort of nervous for that reason, especially because, it is a lot more complex than just the surface of that, like, writers should be able to write anything. There are issues to do with colonial history and all of that, which and appropriation, which makes the subject matter a lot more complex when handling a subject. And I think it's just all about the execution. I mean, when I read Janine Cummins' novel American Dirt, I felt like it just didn't handle it in the way it probably should have did for the subject matter she was writing about. And but I have more faith in Edna O'Brien, who's a much more skilled writer and who did a massive amount of research, and I think actually went to Africa and did lots of charitable work while she was there. And so yeah, I am interested and keen to read this after all of that preamble, and that's basically want to say I do want to read this, and I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to more debate about it. There's also Dominicana, which Anna very savvily, she was very savvy in picking this as one of her expected choices for the long list for the Women's Prize, because now it is on the long list, and it's one that I hadn't really heard of too much. I'd heard it mentioned, like Anna said, in these lists of books by Latin authors that you might want to read instead of American Dirt, and though it's definitely not the same story as American Dirt, it's a very different story, but another book by a Latinx writer. So yeah, I'm keen to read it. Yeah, it does sound good. So yes, looking forward to reading this soon. There is also Queenie, which is a novel I've been looking forward to for ages. It's one of those books, I feel like there's always a book on the long list for the Women's Prizes, one that I've been really looking forward to and wanting to read for a long time, but just didn't get around to. And I know I'm going to enjoy the experience of reading it, so I'm looking forward to that. I might save it as one of the last ones as sort of a treat. I mean, it was sort of when in a previous year with The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock, I had that same feeling. Like, this is a book I've always wanted to read, I've been looking forward to, but just haven't got around to. And the prize finally pushed me to actually read it, and I was glad I did. It was a great experience. And, you know, even though I was expecting to like it, just like I'm expecting to like this novel, I'm also expecting to be surprised by some of the things in it. It's probably going to raise some things and issues and points of view and parts of the story which I wasn't expecting. So I'm looking forward to being surprised, as well as, yeah, having an enjoyable reading experience like that. There is also Djinn Patrol on the Purple Line, which is a novel at the beginning of this year when it just came out in the UK. A lot of people were talking about. I thought it sounded really good, and but it was one that I sort of similarly thought I probably won't get around to reading it, but now because of the prize, it'll give the push and an excuse to actually get to reading it. So I am looking forward to finally reading it. There is 1,000 Ships, which a lot of people have been sort of like, oh, of course, there's another retelling of Greek mythology on the Women's Prize list. And I sort of get that, but, it's at the same time, it's funny how there's sort of these zeitgeists in publishing sometimes when a number of different authors will just coincidentally have been writing sort of similar things at the same time. You find that books with the same subject matter or about a certain person or something will all start to come out at the exact same time, and that's just a total coincidence. It just feels odd how that happens, and it seems to have happened in this case because this came out at a similar time last year when Madeline Miller's and Pat Barker's novels came out, and obviously Madeline Miller's been doing this for years. She won the prize previously with her retelling of a Greek myth, and so it's not all that. It's not like, but at the same time, every author brings their own point of view to a similar subject matter, and obviously Anna rates this very highly, and I respect her opinion. So I'm very much looking forward to reading this as well. There's Jacqueline Woodson's book, Red at the Bone, which I've never read anything by Jacqueline Woodson. I've always wanted to, and I'm glad to finally get the push to read this novel. It's also quite short. I mean, the print is even quite big on it, so it's only 180 pages long. So yeah, it won't take me long to read it. So I'm really looking forward to this as well. I'm sounding like a broken record. I'm just but you know me, I'm very excitable. I'm looking forward to reading everything, or at least giving it a try. I might not fall in love with it, but I'm looking forward to giving it a try. There's Hamnett, which is I talked about already. This is the finished copy of it, the UK finished copy of it, which is so beautiful. I mean, look at this. It's just really gorgeous. And obviously much anticipated, highly acclaimed already before it's even come out. And, like Anna said, some people think this might even win the Booker Prize instead of Hilary Mantel this year. So yeah, I'm massively looking forward to this. And then finally, there's the Dutch House. In this beautiful special edition that Waterstones brought out, the bookstore Waterstones brought out last year with the end pages. That it's just it's so beautiful, and I love this story. I think it's a wonderful amazing, enthralling story that is very layered and more complex than just a sort of simple family story, but that's also looking at contemporary America in an interesting way in terms of who has the right to own what the meaning of home is, and more complex questions like that, as well as a really gripping family story. So I think it's a wonderful novel. I'd really recommend it to everybody, and looking forward to discussing it with more people. So those are my thoughts on all of the long list. Again, I'm very sorry this wasn't as exciting as I was hoping it would be to have a discussion with Jennifer and Anna. Maybe one day we'll all get together. I'm sure it'll happen at one point. And, that'll be a really wonderful time, because it's fun after discussing books with people online for so long, and then to actually meet in person. It's a wonderful thing. So hopefully it'll happen one day, but we'll just have to wait for that point. So thank you for watching, and let me know if you've started reading any of these books, what your thoughts are on them, what you're most looking forward to reading next, and all that good stuff. And I'll chat to you again soon. Bye, everyone.